All right, as I spin this chuck around here, I'm only getting about a half a thou out there on the indicator, right? So not too bad on the body, but as I move this over, I've got this ground test rod in here, and as you can see here, I'm getting about 20 thousandths run out. Right, so that's quite a bit of difference there. So I'm thinking I'm gonna clean this chuck up, clean out the scroll, clean out everything in there, and see if that makes a difference. All right, welcome to Right On with John Crane. I hope you guys are doing great. And what I'm working on here today was once known as the Cadillac or Lincoln Continentals of three-jaw chucks. This is none other than the Buck Adjusted True chuck, and when this came out in its day, this was the gold standard. Now, no one had seen this before. This was invented by Jim Buck. I'm not sure the year. Buck chucks, right? They've been making chucks for years. And why this chuck is the gold standard, or was the gold standard, was because this is basically a three-jaw chuck inside of almost like a four-jaw chuck. It's got these three jaws here. It has a scroll mechanism inside, as all three-jaw chucks, right? But then it has 4 points that you can adjust this chuck just like a four-jaw chuck and get some great accuracy. Now, as you saw, I had the indicator on this over there at the lathe, and I was running only half a thousandths out on the outside of this body. And then when I chucked up on a piece of ground stock there, that was running 20 thousandths out. So what I'm thinking is I haven't cleaned this chuck in a long time, right? And there's probably a bunch of chips and debris and junk in the scroll. And that could help some of that 20 thousandths there, and I'm be able to adjust this chuck and get this thing running real nice. But what might also have to happen is I might have to grind these jaws and get this more accurate, you know, and then also this chuck is 55 years old. This chuck was made in 1966, so it is an old chuck. It has taken some wear and tear, but I'm gonna see if I can do my best here and see how accurate I can get this chuck running. All right, I wanted to show you guys this catalog here from 1966. This is a Buck Adjusted True chucks catalog, and this is great information to be able to have. I downloaded this off of Keith Rucker's site, vintagemachinery.org. That is just a playground for all these kinds of things. You can head over there and get a lot of info off of that site if you're looking for old catalogs and that type of thing. So you can see here, right? I got the category here. This is an Adjusted True reversible jaw, three-jaw chuck here. And this is a 2103R. It's a 10-inch, inch and a quarter, and it's weighing in at a whopping 75 pounds there, right? So the reversible jaw, this chuck here, it's got the screws where you can pop these jaws off, you can turn them around. Unlike the older styles of chucks where you had to back it out of the scroll and then turn it around, put it back in, and sometimes on those, you had to have a different set of jaws completely to be able to do that. And if you look through this information here, the accuracy that they're touting here on this chuck is within 3 thousandths. And then with the Adjusted True feature there, that 4-point feature, you can get it within 5/10. Now that's pretty good, but you know, as you saw, I was running out at 20 thousandths over there on the indicator. Obviously, this is an old chuck, right? It's been used for years. This is 55 years old, this chuck, and it's probably got a lot of gummed up junk inside. I can't remember the last time that I cleaned this out, so I'm going to try to clean it out my best and see what we get out of it. Oh yeah, this is great information here in the back. It also has the prices on this chuck, which is great. So back in 1966, you can see this 10-inch was going for $310. And I did the inflation calculation. And so in 2021, that would be $2,539. So back in the day, right, this is definitely a pimpin' ride. If you're going to spend that kind of money on a chuck, that thing better be running within 5/10, right? All right, I'm going to start taking this apart here And I got a tub, and I'm going to start cleaning these parts with some super clean degreaser and get these all cleaned up. I think some of these are a little bit tight for the impact driver there. I'll just loosen these up. Got the old copper hammer here of my grandfather's. This is a great hammer to have around the shop. Right, there's the bottom of that jaw there, or I should say the back of it. All right, next I'm going to pull these bolts out right here. Now this is what clamps together the adjustment plate. I don't know if you guys can see here, but there's a split line on this right here. That's how you get into the adjustment plate and you get into the scroll. So I'm going to pop these out right here. All right, and then here are the 4 adjustment pins right here for adjusting kind of that 4-jaw feature. And I'm going to pop these guys out. Oh, I'll switch over to this guy right here. All right, before I go any further, I want to put some witness marks on this chuck so it makes it easy for reassembly. And you can see here that this keyway right here lines up. You can see some staining right here where this keyway has lived for a long time, and it was probably there when the chuck was made and assembled and tested for accuracy at the factory. So I want to reassemble it in the same way. Now, this right here has an arrow, and that is for an arrow for the keyway. And usually when I'm putting the chuck back on the lathe, I have the keyway facing up, and it's just easy to slide on just like this onto that keyway. So I'm going to use that arrow as a witness mark. So when that is lined up, I'm just going to use a little punch and put a mark right where that arrow is. You know, close, doesn't have to be super accurate, but there's just a little line now. So now I have a witness mark of where I can line up that arrow. Right, you can see I just put a little number 1 right there. That's going to line up with the arrow. All right, you see these adjustment pins right here? If I take this set screw out, right? Now this is one of these adjusting set screws, and I pop this little pin out, right? You can see this is the pin here that pushes against this adjustment plate, right? And you can see over time where these have dug into this adjustment plate. As Tom Lipton would say there, you know, somebody was putting the gronk on it, right? Cranking down a little bit too hard. And it might be that I take this over and I mount this on the lathe and I just take a light skim cut off of this. I don't want to take too much or I'll lose all the adjustability, but I just want to take a hair off of this. All right, now before I forget, I want to back these jaws out, and these are already numbered 1, 2, and 3, and they're pretty self-apparent too when they go back in. They can only go back in one way. I'll just crank these out. Right? Now look at that. You can see all the junk that is in that scroll. There's so many chips. You know, this could be causing that chuck to be way out. All right, now I'm just going to use a little brass punch to separate this line right here, and then I can get at the scroll. Right, and as you can see, that just starts to come apart. No problem there. All right, and what a mess of gooped up grease and like rusty nonsense, right? Look at all this going on in here, right? This just looks like some old baked beans that you just pulled out of the oven that was cooked for like 10 hours too long. So just tapping on this with a little piece of wood. Just lightly tap the scroll down. There we go. All right, and this rack and pinion here, it's got these little keys. You can just rotate this and pop these two guys out right there. With a little persuasion. All right, it's time for me to put some tunes on in the shop and get these parts all cleaned up. But before I do, I want to give a shout out to Super Clean. They sent me over some product, and this has just been great in the shop. I don't know if you guys can see me here in my camouflage Super Clean hat, but this product has just been great. I'm going to spray all these parts down. I got my arrangement of all kinds of brushes to scrub these parts. But first, I'm going to put some tunes on and get rocking and rolling. I took this outside, I hosed it all off, and then I took the compressed air and blow off any water that's on there. And now, right, this is like the product placement video here. Now I come in with the WD-40, because the WD-40, one good thing it does is it drives out water, right? So after hosing this stuff down, and also I use it here as a cleaner as well, and I'm going to come in again with like Scotch-Brite and the brushes. And now I'm just going around with some very fine stones, and I'm going to go over all these little surfaces, make sure there's no big up sticker sticking out. And sometimes when I'm just running these along here, you can see a little shiny spot, and that's a high spot, and you can knock those down. I'm just going to come in with this diamond stone and just run this over the surface and see if there's anything popping out. Not that this is a critical surface, but sometimes you are seating stuff up against the chuck here. Here's another little spot I want to clean up, and this is where the chuck key has been banging on this edge here for 55 years, right? So it's mushroomed this over, rounded this edge over and created a little lip. So I'm going to come in with a little carbide deburring tool here. All right, I'm back at the lathe here, and I'm going to put this on, and I'm just going to turn down this surface right here just a hair to get rid of these little marks right here. There's just a hair left there, so maybe one more pass. I'm trying to go as slow as I can on this. All right, cool. That looks like that's cleaned up pretty well. All right, it's time to reassemble all these parts. And there are so many different lubricants, and everyone has a different preference of what to put in the chuck. You can see the Bison chucks, they put like a grease down in here, and they use a white lithium grease. I know Randy Richards is big on that moly paste, and that's a nice feature. I don't have any moly paste here in the shop. What I'm going to do today is just come in with some whey oil. And this is just some Mobile number 2 whey oil. Look at that. There's a chip coming off the tip of the whey oil gun, right? All right, so I'm going to put some of this around. And I'm thinking I'm going to be taking this chuck apart pretty soon anyhow, because I'm going to grind the jaws. And when you do that, it creates a lot of dust, grinding dust. And I'm going to want to clean that out. So this might come apart here very shortly after I grind those jaws. So I'm just putting some whey oil in here. Actually, that looks a little bit heavy. I might take some of this out, right? And I'll just scoop this down into here. I just want a light coating of this. All right, and I'm going to coat all these surfaces lightly with some whey oil. This is even good just to get in there with the hand and the fingers and spread this all around. All right, now I'll drop the scroll in here without pinching my fingers. Boy, that is one tight fit. That is nice, though. All right, what I got here is just some white lithium grease. And I'm just going to give this all a nice coating of that. And that'll be good for this rack and pinion here. And I'll pop this right in there. Make sure there's no acid bristle brushes there. All right, nice. That spins great. This back plate, I just want to make sure I give this a good coat of whey oil. I'll drop this right onto here. This is a nice snug fit. Oh yeah, feels really good. Okay, now all the screws and bolts here, I cleaned those up on a wire wheel, and I didn't show you that because you guys have seen enough wire wheeling. But I'm gonna drop these in. And I picked up some of this at Tacoma Screw the other day, and this is just some anti-seize here. That's some chapstick, right? So I'm just gonna put a little bit of this on each bolt here on the threads. All right, so just like you're tightening lugs on a car tire, it's always good to do a little pattern, right? You can come do the star pattern. You can come here to here, here to here, and here to here. So this all clamps down nice and even. right, and here's my torque wrench, right, a little tap. All right, now I'm going to put these set screws back in, and again, just a little shot of whey oil, and I'll poke this in the hole. Push that guy in there. There we go. And then here's the set screw. I'm going to give this a little whey oil right there. I just want to bring this out so it's flush, or about flush. And here I line up my arrow with the little number 1 I put on there. Just like that. I just wanted to show you guys the chuck jaws here before they go in. Now here's where the scroll fits into the jaws, and these are all numbered. This is number 1, number 2, and number 3. And you can see here, this engages closest to the tip. The next one is down another step, and this is down another step here for number 3. So if they weren't numbered, you could figure out your jaws just like that by looking at how these line up, 1, 2, and 3. Before I put those in, I just want to give this a good spin, make sure everything's working nice and smooth, work all that grease around inside. All right, now it's time to put the jaws in, but before I do, I'm gonna make sure everything in here gets a nice coat of whey oil. Just a light coat, because when you put this on the lathe, this is going to throw all this oil off everywhere, you know, and it's going to hit you right in the eye. All right, now let's zero in on jaw number 1. It's right here. And I'm going to bring the scroll around. And you see how see that? See those hairs from the acid brushes? You gotta, those things. Yeah, I wish they would make some better acid brushes. Chuck jaw number 1 here. And I'm going to bring this scroll around. See where the beginning of the scroll comes in right there? And I'm going to slide this in. This is number 1, and we're in the number 1 slot. So push that in until that engages, right? And then I'm going to watch for that to come around the beginning of the scroll here to number 2. So I'll get the camera over here. On number 2, and here we go. The scroll's coming in with number 2. I got to put a little whey oil on this. And I'll wait till it comes around to the number 3 position here. All right, there we go. All right, I'll put the jaws back on. All right, I'm back here at the LeBlond, and this chuck is like a slippery pig right now. And I got the keyway up, I got the arrow right there. Thread this on. All right, now I'm gonna start by coming in and putting the indicator right here on the body. And I'm gonna get this very nice here before I put something in the jaws there. All right, so now are going to work this like a 4-jaw chuck. All right, now the key to this is to keep these just slightly backed off. Right? You don't want these too tight, or else you're not going to be able to move the chuck around. And then once you get it centered up nicely, then you can crank these down and lock it in place. All right, now each one of these set screws is marked with a number. So here's number 3, and we're sitting at about 13, right, on the dial. And if we come around to number 1 here, looks like we're sitting about 22, right? So we want to split the difference there. We want to hit around 18. So what we want to do is when you tighten one of these, it pulls the chuck towards you. And sometimes this is nice to do with 2 keys, right? So I'll put one in right here. Actually, I'm going to go to number 3 here. And I want to tighten this one, and I want to loosen this one on the back. So loosen a hair, and then tighten this. And I'm shooting for about 18 or so. And now let's move to the other 2 here. So we get number 2, right? Same thing. We want to see if we can hit this to number 18, to about 18 or so. So we'll come here to 4. I'm going to loosen up the one on the back side and tighten this one. Loosen, tighten, loosen. Oh, a little bit too much right around there. All right, now I'll zero this out, just so it's easy to read here. And let's see what we got. 0, 0, 0. We're looking pretty good here. All right, first I have to tighten these up on the face. And actually sometimes when you tighten these, it throws all the adjustment off. So I'm just snugging these up, and then I'll check it again and see if we're within a few tenths there. Now that stayed pretty good. See, we're still right on 0. We're within a couple tenths there. Nice. All right, I put a piece of stock in the chuck there and put the indicator on it. And it looks like I'm still getting some good run out. That's running out at about 16 thousandths right there. So now I'm going to adjust it. You know, this makes me think that I have to grind the jaws, and that might be the next operation for this. But I can adjust this now. And so we'll start with number 1. All right, now I got this centered up within a few tenths, and I should tighten up these guys here on the face real quick before I forget. All right, I've got this now within about under a half a thou there for sure. But the test is now, can I take the piece out, put it back in, and get the same reading? All right, so we'll back this off. All right, take the part out, put the part back in, give it a little crank. Let's put the indicator on. All right, I'll zero this out just for reference here, and let's see what we got. not too shabby there, right? It's showing me about 1,000th right there. So I'm pretty happy with that doing 1,000. Let's try it one more time. We'll pull this part out, stick it back in. All right, crank these jaws around. All right, stick this part in. Give it a little crank. Come back in with the indicator. All right, we'll zero out right here. Ah, that's even better. That's running within a few tenths right there. Huh. All right, that's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. I still think I'm gonna come in, you know, I just got that Do More tool post grinder, and I'm gonna set that up and come in and see if there's any bell mouthing on these jaws and flatten these out and get this thing running super nice and true. All right, that's the 1966 Buck Chuck Adjust True running again. All right, right on, guys. See you soon.